All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Just Make It Pretty podcast. Today, we are talking about leading with joy. And I'm super excited about this episode, not only because it's something that is close to my heart and something that I have worked on a lot over the past years. I'm also joined by an amazing guest, which I'm sure that you all know already, but I'm just super excited for this episode. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Just Make It Pretty podcast, the slightly unhinged marketing podcast for home builders and beyond. I'm your host, Sarah Haynes, also known as the Pixel Wizard, and my goal is to tackle the tough stuff that goes in behind the scenes in marketing and offer actionable tips, creative insights, and a little bit of humor to spark some creativity. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's get started. So everybody, I am joined by the incredible Abbie Mirata today. She is the Vice President of People and Culture for Woodside Homes, and we are diving into something that I think doesn't really get the spotlight that it should, and that is joy, especially in business. So I'm super excited to talk to Abbie about that because she is a speaker, she's a coach, an author, and she founded the Entrepreneur Project, which helps people lead life with more fulfillment, avoid burning out, and really adding that joy back into the process. So I think it's going to be a really exciting conversation today. So thank you so much, Abbie, for your time. And tell the people, what all did I forget in your introduction?
I think that's enough. I can tell you I'm an Aries and I love the beach and I'm like a crazy dog mom. But I think on the professional side, you got it all down.
I did forget about your amazing puppies because we share that because I have wiener dogs too, and you've got the cutest wiener dogs. So that is a
Yes.
big thing I forgot.
Yeah, no, that's my work-life balance right now is going to work and making time for my dog.
Yes. Awesome. Like I said, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this topic, and I was so honored to be able to have the opportunity to join your retreat, your women's retreat, the Entrepreneur Project, and it's been something I've been thinking about ever since then. So I think a lot of women, especially, this is such an important topic for them because we're all chasing goals and building things and trying to do all the right things in our careers. And I think, at least for me, it got to a point where you're like, is this how this is supposed to feel? I've had whatever success that I've had, and I'm like, is this it? Like, is this what I'm supposed to do? So joy felt like something that I was supposed to earn. And that's not the best feeling in the world. So I knew when I've been going through all of that, I knew I had to have you on the podcast as soon as I could. So yeah, so tell me a little bit about your mission with the Entrepreneur Project and how joy comes into your work-life balance and what that means to you.
Absolutely. But the Entrepreneur Project retreats, it's really about I was fulfilling something that I couldn't find myself when I created those retreats. So I've had one foot in entrepreneurial space and a foot in corporate, and I've gone back and forth. I think I've grown 3 or 4 feet at this point to put it all together. And what was really interesting is I had a certain type of support and all of these opportunities for conferences and learning through corporate, but there was this piece of personal development and how that works within my job that just seemed to be missing. And then when I was solely on my own for a little while, I owned a brick and mortar business and I had coaching and I got involved with these incredible entrepreneurs and went to those retreats and events and was so surprised at what they learned and did. And it was so different from corporate. And I thought I need both of these things together in an actual tactile way, not in theory, not a bunch of mindset, but as my dear friend Abby Cornelia says, trying to put the work with the woo. This idea of mindset and personal development, but how that really comes into play as leaders and in corporate America. And so that's why I created the retreat. It's not a whole lot of content. We go really deep on a small amount of content. And it really helps women in particular figure out where that self awareness is and how you define your own version of work life blend, work life balance, whatever it is you want to call it, and how you figure out at what stage of your life you're at and where that needs to go because it will constantly evolve. And then, of course, joy is my favorite word in the whole world. It is tattooed on my arm. And I try through this to help women have a new relationship with joy. Because, like you said, to a lot of people, it's either this thing that you have to earn or it's this thing we're chasing, right? We're always talking about, what we want to do, things that bring us joy. We want to keep things that bring us joy, get rid of things that don't bring us joy. We want to do things that bring us joy. And so basically, what we're doing is we're giving all of this power away to see these things bring joy or don't bring joy, rather than owning joy as a value inside of us and being the one to bring joy to everything we do and to always have joy. And I think that is completely possible.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is too. It's just like this so elusive thing. Like we're all like chasing this thing. And I think work-life balance has a big play in that because we're all told, especially if you're on like TikTok or wherever, oh, you're supposed to have this work-life balance. Don't you dare look at your email at this time or whatever. And it's supposed to be all these rules. And I know, at least for my career, that's not how it worked out. And if I really sat down and I thought about it, I was like, yeah, this is what's working for me. Sometimes I need to sit with my baby and not answer emails in the middle of the day. And then I'm going to pick that up in the evening. But because of this, like what I was supposed to be doing was having this work-life balance. Like it's the evening, you're not supposed to answer emails. I felt like I was failing, even though I was doing what was good for me and good for my family and what actually made me happy. So I don't know. I think there's this myth of like work-life balance out there.
There is. And I think what you said, social media is part of the problem. And not just social media, there's people who are making careers out of telling others what their balance should be,
Mhm.
right? By making this a topic of conversation, by writing books that tell you, right, what to do when you wake up in the morning and when you should put things down and all of
Yeah.
this stuff. And so we get all of this noise, and then we start comparing ourselves to other people that we see and what their version of balance, in my air quotes, right, is. And then we get all messed up. And the reality is, I do think it's a myth. And whether you call it balance or blend, it's really about doing the things that matter to you in that moment, prioritizing those things and doing what brings you joy and not worrying about what everybody else is telling you or what that looks like. I think if you can measure it on how you're feeling, that tells you if you're in balance or not. So if you are starting to get overwhelmed, get snippy, yell at people for no reason, right? That's a cue to you that there's probably something out of balance. So
Yeah.
whether you need to give something up, change something, do some breathing, right? All of those types of things, you might be out of balance. But if you feel good, you feel balanced, and you feel like you're getting the things done, it doesn't matter what that looks like to other people. Constantly, people tell me that I'm out of whack on work life, that I have no work life balance. But I happen to be in a season of my life right now where this is my focus, right? My children are flown and grown. I get to see them and talk to them, right, on the cadence that we have. So I don't have those kids at home. My husband and I are at a point where he's doing things, I'm doing things, right? And so I have this flexibility, and I work what I work, not because anyone's making me, but because I really want to do it. I enjoy it, right? It makes me happy. So if that means I'm not, I don't know, golfing or going on trips enough, or I don't know what it is, but those things don't necessarily, the things that other people do for rest, right? They don't fill my cup. And I'm sure I'll be in a season in a different time of my life where I do want to work less and do more of these things. So I think that it's a myth because we're told that there is a certain way that you're supposed to do things. When the reality is you need to figure out what balance means to you, and it could look very different from someone else. And you know what? It could change week to week. You just need to be really self-aware and present as to how you're feeling and how you're going about things.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's because there's those rules, like we're basically setting ourselves up to fail. Like we're everything that we're doing is yeah, you're never going to get this right because everyone's got a different opinion about it. And when you realize that, you can start breaking it down, but that takes a whole process. And I think a lot of people get to the point of burnout before they figure that out. So, what are your thoughts about burnout specifically? What do people misunderstand about what burnout is?
That's a really good question. I think that burnout is this idea, maybe to a lot of people, of just dropping the ball, feeling overwhelmed. Physical symptoms, I think, is when we get to that burnout. And then I think, quite honestly, apathy. And that's typically for me when I start to think that I have a team member. So, as a leader, I have a team member who's probably burnt out when all of a sudden I notice that they don't care to try anymore, right? They don't seem as in tune to things. There's this apathy that they're going about their job. And I think it's because when you truly reach burnout, you're just turning things off.
Mhm.
Where we tend to say, I'm burned out just because maybe we're slightly overwhelmed or we don't understand how to prioritize things. And you're right, we get to this point where until we feel that, we don't want to make changes rather than doing these check ins on a regular basis with ourselves and having a routine for that so that you know how to move those dials, right? When am I feeling overwhelmed or when am I feeling like I'm dropping the ball? These are moments to just make small adjustments so that we don't reach that burnout stage. So I think sometimes we use burnout when it's not necessarily burnout, because if you think about that term, right? You have a candle that's lit, it's flickering, it could get a little weaker, you give it a little oxygen and it gets bigger, but the reality of the flame just going out, that's burnt, right? It's burnt out now. It's just gone. And so I think we want to avoid burnout by making all of those small changes and giving ourselves a little oxygen every once in a while, sometimes quite literally, rather than freaking out when we just have a little bit of feeling disconnected or overwhelmed. But as a leader, you really got to watch for those types of symptoms in your team so that you can reach them and make changes before we get to burnout so that we never feel burnt out.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things I've heard you speak a few times, and you talk about like the pause and like the power of pausing. So, can you share a little bit like what does that look like in a leadership role and related to this burnout topic too?
So I think it can be a different. So sometimes it really is just stop, right? And realize that like realize if you take an hour and you just turn it off, or you tell people to leave you alone for a bit, or you give them that space, the world is not going to fall apart most of the time if you
Yeah.
take quite literally a pause. But one of the things that I do is it's almost pattern interrupts. And that's really what I mean as pausing as a leader. So I'll give you a couple of examples just last week that I did with my own team. So, number one, I put time on the calendar as a meeting for all of us to be in a room, and we all got in the room and they're all like, what are we meeting about? What are we going to talk about? They had their computers and I'm like, nothing. I just wanted to spend time with you guys. Like it was this moment of we are all so busy and I'm in meetings and everyone's going around, that this like dedicated intentional time to just talk to each other we didn't have, or we'd gone weeks without. There might be that quick say hi in the morning or tell me how your weekend was or how's your kid doing, everything's good, but not to really pause and be intentional about time together. The other thing that we just recently did was we learned together, which is a great pause to refresh everyone, to change our perspectives, and to do that as a team. So, from an L&D standpoint, there was this webinar where they were teaching, a vendor was teaching how to create something really cool that we all wanted to be able to do. So we scheduled a watch party and we ate lunch together and went in a conference room and we all learned together and then talked about it. So we paused our brains on like the due dates, the crazy, all of the stuff that we had to get done, the reporting, and we just came together and did something completely different. And it really helps you kind of refresh. So I think as a leader, there's all types of ways that we can pause. And it helps us mentally, it helps our team, it helps us connect with our teams. But I think in our world today, we have to literally schedule them in, which is a little crazy to think about, but we have to be really intentional about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's how the people who get like really burnt out, like I think that there's a combination of things that happen, obviously, but like some of that just mundane, I have to do these things and like I've got back-to-back meetings forever and ever. And there's a lot of this, like that pause really just allows you to just like just take a breath and just get back to what you do enjoy doing in your role. I've started with my team, we do passion projects because I work with a design team. We're just design something that's not for a client, that's just something that you enjoy doing, something that's a hobby. And it doesn't take that much time, but you can just see the excitement like just elevate in the meeting. Everybody's talking about something that they're passionate about. And it's something that is so easily overlooked as a leader because there's so many deadlines and there's so many meetings and there's so many things that we have to push to do. But like you're going to get such a better product from your team and such better work ethic from them when you take that like just a little bit of time.
Absolutely. And I think you have to set the example, right, as the leader and do it yourself. And then sometimes you have to do that for them. There's this balance of how we invest in our teams and how we encourage them to invest in themselves, right? A lot of times I work with maybe younger women in their career. They start asking questions about wanting the company to do all of this investment in them, or how do I learn this, or how do I learn that? And a lot of times I'm like, listen, you've got to take control of your own career, right? You need to go get out of our room and get into another room. You need to network. You need to up your LinkedIn game, right? Go learn something. But sometimes we have to lay the groundwork or we have to give them that opportunity, right? And I love the idea of a passion project, right? And also putting it on there. I am on performance KPIs and performance reviews. One of the things that I really recommend leaders do is they put that there, right? Actually make it a requirement. Because number one, you're showing your team that this is important. And if you're telling me after 3 months, right, say it's once a quarter, you literally have no time to be able to do this thing, to create something, to have a passion project, to go learn something. Okay, then we need to sit down and look at how you're managing your time, your productivity. Is this my fault? Because I'm actually requiring you to invest in yourself over the next 3 months or once a quarter. So it holds them accountable, but it also holds us accountable as leaders to make sure that they have the time to do that, because you will get so much ROI on that. You'll get retention. They're going to learn things that they can apply. I'm sure there's stuff you guys do in those passion projects and things you're designing that all of a sudden connect a dot to a client you're working on or is a new idea, because you're allowing your brain to just get rid of all of that stuff and focus on something completely different. And so it's that context switching again that will come back to help you in other projects.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Like you're like taking it another level by making it a KPI. I love that. I do think leaders they have to start this, they have to lead it. And connecting that back to the joy topic of this whole podcast, like how do we lead with joy? How do we show people that we're doing that and like really set that example?
I think I would be a bajillionaire if I could answer that question totally. Tactily, I would write a book. I think leading with joy is really about you as a leader putting that intentionally into everything that you do. It's the decisions you make. It's how you show up. It's the gratitude that you show people. It's the follow up, right? It's all of these things. We talk so much about leadership development, and this could be a whole nother podcast, right? I have this concept of leadership development versus leadership consumption. And if you talk to people, they still are frustrated with their leaders, as much time and money as we put into leadership development. And I think it's because we are leading based on the terms of someone else. We are leading to not really focus on the behaviors in the person, but on what we're trying to get out of them. And so there's not a lot of joy in that. And we get so crazy in our day to day that when we do tell someone, hey, I'm going to look into this for you, or hey, I'm going to do this for you, or I'm going to get back to you, so often we don't have the follow up. We start letting our one on ones slip. We reschedule them and we don't have them, and everyone seems okay with it. I would say my teams tend to be the first ones to be like, yes, please cancel that. But the reality is they do want that time with you if you make that time valuable. So for me, trying to lead more through joy than with joy is about my own ability to self-regulate, to be self-aware, to be curious about them and not defensive or not judgmental when I'm looking at things. is to ask a lot of questions to understand perspective of someone else and to put the human first. And that's really hard because sometimes we feel like putting the human first conflicts with putting the business first. And I think that there is a way to go about that a little bit differently by helping someone understand where they need to go and the whys and to help get there together than just coming down hard on someone, not listening to them, and just focusing on the fact that they're not getting the results, they're not getting sales, they're not doing the things they're supposed to do without really getting into the why. Why is that happening? What's changed? How can I help you? Or really making them, sometimes you have to have the conversation that is, I don't know if this is the right place for you. I don't know that this place is bringing you joy right now. You're not successful. So how do I help you go find something that's going to make you successful? And that's putting the business first, but it's also in a way that you're really connecting with that person because you want what's best for them. And nobody just wants to fail all the time.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
not fun. That's
No.
not fun. But I think leading with joy is, it's not about being positive all the time. It's just about, I don't want to use that authentic word because I know that it's a little bit of a buzz term. And what does authentic really mean?
Yeah.
But I think it's just really being vulnerable with people and honest and having a really high level of empathy in everything that we do. And I think my biggest word, one of my words for this year, and I've learned a lot of that through the work I'm doing with Woodside right now, is intention.
Mm.
I think when you can clearly, everything you're doing has intention behind it. Every meeting you have, every email you send, every decision you make, like real intention, I think you'll start to see a little bit more joy come through and come out in your teams.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And it's so you're making basically connection the intention of these meetings. I love that because I have found myself, I'm usually the one that's disappointed when a meeting gets canceled and everyone's, what is your why? This is a good thing. And I'll admit there's some times where I'm like, oh, this client meeting or there's a really boring meeting that I don't want to go to. I'm excited. But like some meetings, especially when it's like our internal team, I'm like, I'm looking forward to that connection. Even if we like don't really accomplish that much or we don't have much on the agenda, that's the main goal to me is to check in with everyone and see how everyone's doing and kind of get that read. And especially working virtually, I feel like there's so few opportunities to do that. So it's, I don't know, it's something that I don't really know how to convince everyone or like to make this like a thing that's like on the agenda. Okay, now we're going to connect or now we're going to focus on joy.
I know. And that's really what meetings should be about. So if a meeting where one person is talking most of the time or you're just info dumping, that's an email. I've been in meetings literally where someone presents a PowerPoint and reads everything that's on the slide. And that's the meeting. I'm like, I honestly, send me the deck, I can read it. So meetings, if you're asking people to come out of the business, out of their day-to-day, especially if you want people to be present in those meetings, and that's really hard virtually, right? We are all guilty of being on a virtual meeting and looking up at the screen and that screen and checking our email and working, which when we're in person, it's a whole lot harder to do that. So if you want people to be present, the meeting should be about everyone. Everyone who is on the meeting should have something to say, right? If there is a meeting where someone is not engaging, doesn't need to speak, doesn't need to share, then maybe that's not the best use of their time. They can just get a recap down the road. So meetings should be about connection and collaboration and people bringing their ideas together. And when you think about why we cancel meetings, and I've tried to get better at this, I'm still not perfect, but I'm like you, there's sometimes when there's a meeting and the boss, right, is now can't make the meeting and out of town, so the meeting gets canceled. So maybe the rest of us wanted to at least talk to each other, right? So I think as leaders, when you have regular one-on-ones or team meetings that are on a weekly cadence and something in your schedule changes, then I would say, hey, I'm not going to be at the meeting this week, but we're not canceling the meeting. You still come together you guys talk, or just because to keep that cadence and that regularity and that consistency, and to encourage the connection between others. And sometimes maybe it's going to be a shorter meeting, but you're right. There should be something on there that says we don't have a whole lot to talk about, and that's okay. We should still get together. What can we talk
Yeah.
about? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's that time of, I'm going to put time on the calendar to get all of us in a room just to talk. And that creates that pause sometimes when you need that pause. And sometimes being together will create things you need to talk about that you didn't know you needed to talk about when you came into that
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think that leadership, like we are so busy. And I think that's always the thing. It's I'm really busy. And it's yes, like we all are super busy, but like when you make that connection like a goal and you prioritize it, now it's just as important as going over this KPI or like reviewing this spreadsheet or this deck. Like it has to be still an important goal of these meetings and of your culture. You have to make it part of the culture.
You do. And you know what, Sarah, leadership is hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes it sucks. And I don't know that people say that enough. And this goes back to the conversation earlier around like burnout or work-life balance. And this could be a very unpopular opinion, but there is this element for me that based on your level of leadership in your role, you need to compromise and sacrifice. In general, you should be compensated for the level that you're at very differently than the people who you serve, right? And work with you. And so sometimes what that means is I do go home and work at night because my time during the day needs to be with my team. So this concept, anytime we get to the point or I'm in too many meetings, my team tells that to me because in a way I'll get this really long email from a team member and it'll be like, I know you're really busy, so I've been saving and I just thought I'd email this to you. So whenever someone tells me I need you and I didn't want to bother you because you seemed really busy, my heart breaks.
Yeah.
So for the most part, obviously I have meetings and things that I have to be in, but when someone knocks on my door, whatever I'm focused on or working on or report I'm trying to get out or something I'm trying to review, it stops. Because at its core, my job description is to take care of them, is to bring joy to their job every day. And if they feel like they can't get support, they can't talk to their leader, they don't have the resources and tools, that's when they have a lack of joy in their job. That's when frustration really picks up. And so that means that I don't have as much quote unquote balance because I end up going home at night and doing those things, or I get to work a good hour and a half before anybody else walks through the office door. There's two of us here at the time I get here. And it's so I can sit down and do the things uninterrupted that I need to get done before the day starts because I feel like so that they can get things they need done, they can do the work we need done, and they can have their version of balance. I have to be a little off balance, but I feel like that's my job as a senior leader. That's what I'm compensated for. That's the role that I want to play. And if I don't want that, or when that stops bringing me joy, that's when it's time for me to go, maybe it's time for a career change because I don't want to be doing this all of the time. But there's an element that it's just required in certain aspects for me to support my team.
Yeah. So do you think that, that businesses should assign one person, like you said, that's in your job description, which is incredible, but you're working for a bigger company. So is it something that we should be putting on like a job description, whether that's like your whole job or part of it, or do you think this should be something that every leader has as a spread out role responsibility?
I don't know if I know how to answer that honestly. I think it's dependent on the person in the situation. I do think that there should be an expectation that if you consider yourself a leader, especially a people leader, right? So there is being a people leader and then there's leading and leadership, which you don't need people to report to you, right? You don't need that structure to show up and lead the business, lead other people, lead yourselves. But when you're talking about being a people leader, I think that everyone should take on that accountability to realize that, is this really what I want? And I think that as a leader, if you're developing other leaders and you have team members and you're talking through that, you should have that conversation with someone, right? There is this element of sacrifice and giving up if I'm going to promote you into a role where other people report to you. Not to say that you all of a sudden don't deserve to have a life and have
Yeah.
time with your kids and go to soccer games and all of that, but there is an element that you should want to do that, right? There should be this, going back to my word, there is a joy in leadership that I get that I wouldn't get if I wasn't a people leader and if I didn't make those compromises and those sacrifices. Like, it really does bring me a lot of joy. And you have to want that, right? You have to want someone knocking on your door every 5 minutes. You have to want people needing you and expecting you to make decisions all day long. Like, you have to get fulfilled by that and be able to show up that way in a positive manner that doesn't feel like you're overwhelmed, you're burnt out, you're busy, right? So I do think that all leaders should look in the mirror and have that conversation with themselves. Do I want this? But I do think even in small businesses, you can be as collaborative as you want to, but at the end of the day, there probably is someone who really steps in as this is your job, is to really own this for your team across the board and truly set the example for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think some people have a natural ability in that too. Like, it's just one of the skills that they come with. And
Yeah.
so, no, recognizing that this is something that I'm good at, or this is something that I really care about, putting yourself in the situation where you can influence. You don't have to be a leader to do that. But I think it's a great skill when leaders do have it and they can just incorporate it. So you're not only giving that to yourself, because I think it's such an honor when I'm leading someone or mentoring someone and I can see their growth. And I get so excited by that. And that brings me so much joy. And it's not technically on my to-do list that day. Make sure, talk to
Yep.
this person or see this thing for them. But just find those moments and notice like what you're good at, what your team's good at, and pulling people in.
Absolutely. And sometimes you should put it on your to-do list, right? If you get to the point where you know that brings you joy and that fills your cup, and you know that you're doing something for them and you're helping the business, if those feel too few and far between, then again, go back to that intention of I'm going to make time for this. I'm going to sit with someone and ask the question. Sometimes we see it because we step back and we look at it, or it's this big thing somebody does and you see that growth. But sometimes if you're not asking the questions, you're not going to see the growth. And that is taking time to tell me about your week. What did you learn this week? Where do you feel like you had a win, right? Or you did something differently than you did last week? Or where do you feel like you got stuck and you struggled? And these are conversations that our teams really do want to have and make them connect to us. But we don't always do that on a regular basis. And if you have a big enough team, maybe where you only have one-on-ones once a month, what are you going over in that? And are you doing that? Because it brings you joy, right? And so when you find you're starting to feel that way as a leader, go intentionally do the things that bring you joy. At this last retreat, one of the coaches, she taught us about planting gratitude seeds. And it was a really interesting concept because it really digs into like how when we're feeling like we're not resilient, how do we plant the seeds of resiliency? When we're struggling and we need support, who are our resources that we go to, right? When we need to feel grounded and productive, what are we doing? So it's this idea that and that goes back to just being self-aware, when you're starting to feel out of balance, when you're starting to feel like work isn't joyful anymore, how are you reaching out and doing the things that bring that back to you? So if you know that watching someone have the light bulb go off and seeing their growth brings you a ton of joy, and you're starting to feel like you're burnt out or you're overwhelmed, then go with intention, figure that out. Go find someone, ask the questions, even if you didn't have anything to do with it, even if it's not a coaching moment or a learning moment. But when you ask other team members about that, you're going to just naturally get excited for them about whatever it is they learned or whoever they helped them. And that's going to fill your cup back up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the big thing like that you've been alluding to this whole time is we have to rewrite what this leadership is and like what is truly important as a leader and what should we be trying to do. And I feel like it's not always on your KPIs personally. What does that mean to you? Redefining what leadership looks like. What does that mean to you?
You gotta let a lot of stuff go. When we get to a leadership level, I think it's because we performed and we had things within our control. And there's a Simon Sinek quote. It is my absolute favorite quote. And I find myself telling somebody this every single week. And it is, as leaders, we are no longer in charge of the results. We're in charge of the people, in charge of the results. And that is so easy to say and so incredibly difficult to live.
Mhm.
I find myself, especially, we're in a difficult market right now. Traffic's down, sales are down, people are waiting, there's all of this unknown. And so I find myself going past my people and trying to solve the problems and dig into the information and right start figuring out all of these results so that I can give the results that they want to see. And I stop doing that through others. And that's actually when I stop leading. I am not leading anymore. Someone watching you do the work is not you being a leader. You being able to step back and always lead through your people, to me, that's my definition of leadership. And when I look at my calendar and I have a week where I'm not having those one on ones, meeting with my team, reviewing their work, right, before we push it out, giving them feedback, that's the week that I'm like, not showing up as my best self right now. This isn't the way it should be. I'm too in the weeds doing the work and not taking care of the people who are actually supposed to be doing the work because that's what I hired them for. And I know we all know that. We
Mhm.
do. There's like a bajillion books written about it. But like I said, it seems really hard for us to actually do that and live through that. There is, I forget the guy, I don't know if I have it on my board, but I have his cheat sheet. It's the 5 levels of delegation. And I live off that with my team. And it's this idea of trying to get everything to what's level 5 delegation, which basically means I fully trust you and I'm going to move on to something else versus maybe a level 1, which is I'm going to hold your hand and micromanage you all the way through this.
Yeah.
But when things are stressful, I think as leaders, we end up doing all of the things, checking on the clients, making the phone calls, doing the report for them. Just, I'll do this, go do that. And we're not figuring out why we are having to do all that work all of a sudden. But I think that's the way I'm trying to redefine leadership is
Mhm.
literally how do I create a day where all I'm doing is helping my people? And I'm not actually, that's the work. That is my work. Not to say I'm not doing any work, but that is the only work that I need to do and to remove roadblocks for them. I see that as my other job. If I'm in a meeting or I'm on the phone or I'm talking to my boss, it should be because I need to maneuver through things to
Mhm.
ensure that my people have the tools and the resources they need to get the work done. Not that I'm figuring out how to do the work.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's all about balance. That's my word for the year is balance because I'm as a woman and we've got all of these like pressures and then we've got the work-life balance and we've got all of these things trying to reclaim your power in your role and making these leadership changes. It just and while also trying to be joyful and bring joy to your team, it's like everything seems like conflicting. And so you have
Yeah.
to find this balance. And I have not found it yet, but I'm going to someday. But it's just, I don't know. It's like there's so many opposite energies all the time.
There is, and I think it's how you blend them. So I have this process that I went through over time, and as I reflected on it, it was my way to help other people, and it is the exercises to strengthen your joy joints. And so I think if you compare anything, right, to exercise and the idea of being physically healthier, there is a lot of the same analogies there because there are some processes and things that you can do, but it's about creating the mindset to do it. It's about discipline. It's about knowing when to compromise. It's about owning when you're going to have a cheat day. It's about going through all of these things so that you can control physically, right? How you're showing up, that you're losing weight, that you feel good, all of the things in your body. And for me to create joy and live through joy and make it a muscle memory and constantly say that I can find joy in everything. I had to go through that process of changing my mindset and looking at everything really differently. And even as a leader in a crazy business, right? I think I can employ those tactics. And I literally had to go through the process of changing. I redid all of my social media, right? The things that were in front of me. I did a cleanse, right? So that's one of my steps to bringing joy back, right? If you feel like you've lost it, and creating it in every day is just like when we start a new exercise regime, usually we're told like to cleanse, get all the toxins out, right? And so that was my first step, is what am I intaking mentally that is toxic, that is gumming up my mind, that is keeping me in a negative space, and I need to get all of that stuff out. And that meant, what was I watching on TV? Who was I hanging out with? My social media, and even conversations with my spouse and my kids. There were certain things that I was like, I don't want to have this conversation. We're not going to talk about this. We're not going to go down this rabbit hole. It does not serve me well. So it's this process of strengthening all of those joy joints. Help, a group workout. A lot of people do a much better job of staying accountable to going to the gym when there is somebody meeting them at the gym every morning at 5 a.m., right? So it's the same thing. Stop working in a silo and ask people for help every single day. And I used to put, there's two things that I would put like on a little note card. Number one is, I love coffee. I always have two cups. I'm showing my 2 cups. And typically people are like, that's enough coffee, Abbie. I'm like, but I want more coffee. And I know I need to drink more water. So it was this idea that until I finish this cup of water, I cannot pick up another cup of coffee. And I was holding myself accountable. And it was the same thing with asking for help. If you tell yourself you can't help someone else until you've asked for help that day, I want you to imagine how hard that is.
That'd be so hard for me specifically.
I know, because we love to help people, right? Why do we love to help people? You just said when you see people grow, when you mentor and coach someone, how good that feels. When we've programmed our brains that it's a sign of weakness to ask for help. So, number one, is that how you look at the people you help? Do you think they're weak? No. So, why would you think that of yourself? And
Yeah.
how good you feel when you help someone else grow. Why wouldn't you give that gift to someone else? Right? So it's every day, it's looking at your team and asking for their help. It's telling them, guys, right now I'm overwhelmed and I need your help. What can you take off my plate, or what are the little things? And you'd be surprised how much your team wants to help you. Today, I had someone just bring me lunch without even a team member of mine knew that I was busy, and I was busy at lunchtime. And when they went out, they brought it to me. So it's this idea of accepting that help, right? And so there's all of these other little things you can do, and it starts to retrain. It's just your brain and it's muscle memory. And then you just start showing up that way, and you start treating people that way, and you start leading that way, because you've done this work to strengthen those joy joints. So it just becomes who you are and how you operate every day without thinking about it.
Yeah. I always say I can change anything about myself just with my brain, but sounds easy, not easy, but you
No.
totally can. If you have something that like you are working on, or you don't like about yourself, or you want to be better at, or whatever, like you can change it. You just have to make that a focus. And I love your analogy of working out and all of that. Having an accountability partner is super helpful too. So I love that.
You just have to put a process with it, Sarah. I
Yeah.
think there's so many things that we do that we put the processes and we see change. And we don't understand how to do that with our own mindset. And there are things you can do, but you have to do them with intention, and you have to be consistent, and you have to really be willing to do it. And you do wake up one morning and you just operate differently, because you've been slowly training yourself all
Yeah.
along. It's just finding a process that works for you to change your mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always waiting for that like lightning bolt of everything's different now. Amazing. A
You'll
great
get
moment.
there.
Yeah. What would you say? So as we're closing out this episode, what would you say is like one thing that you wish like every woman, every leader could hear, and like what you feel like they need to hear right now? What would that be?
Oh, wow.
Not to put you on the spot or anything. It's a big
I know. Do
question.
you ask everybody that?
I gotta stump everybody at least once.
This is going to sound crazy. but the only opinion that matters is your own.
That's true.
It really, truly, if I could tell anybody, women in particular, because it's not in our DNA, you need to be selfish. You come first. Because if you are conflicted, if this is what's taking up your brain space, if you're tired, and we know this, right? You can't, that's one of those phrases we all say, you can't pour from an empty cup,
Yeah.
but you're not going to help anybody else. And I think sometimes we think that being selfish is about not being nice to other people, or this idea that we're putting ourselves before we're putting someone else. But I think that if you aren't doing the things that make you happy, asking for the things that you deserve, owning your own value, and putting those non negotiables out there as true non negotiables, you're never going to be happy. You're never going to feel like you've found that right job, or you've gotten what you've deserved, or you're in a place, because we are so programmed to care about what other people think of us. And I don't mean to say that, don't take that totally the wrong direction where you just say what you want, you know what I mean? And treat other people like crap if that's what makes you feel good. Don't do that. But your opinion of you, right? That is, you have to feel valued. You have to think you matter. You have to look in the mirror and see beauty. You have to know that you are a good wife, a good mother, a good human, right? All of those things, because once you feel that way and you do the work to get yourself there, what you are now going to project out to the rest of the world is going to help you get where you want to go. And so I think if I could tell anyone anything, it's be selfish, it's put yourself first. Absolutely, 100%. And you'll see other people wanting to put you first too. But the more that people realize that you're not going to put yourself first and you can be taken advantage of, the more that they're going to take you for granted and take advantage of you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's sad, but it's true. I think it's unconscious sometimes too. They're not thinking,
Yeah,
I'm going to take advantage of her, but it just happens. It's just like human nature.
absolutely. And you're right. I don't think there's people out there who are like, huh. But it happens because we put that out there, and we don't take the time to take care of
Yeah.
ourselves and ask for what we want, and to put ourselves first, and do all of the things and invest in ourselves, make ourselves better. We're too busy doing that for everybody else, even as leaders.
Yep, definitely. Let's tell the people how they can find you. How can they find information about entrepreneur projects? Because that's what you're going to get and so much more, at least from my experience there. So, how can people find you? What will be the best way for them to reach out?
LinkedIn. I am very active on LinkedIn. It is probably the best place to connect with me. And then I can connect you with anything that I can support or help you with. And I'm always open to telling people about the retreat, but in general, just having conversations and connecting with people. But that would be the best place to find me.
So, thank you so much again. This was so good. I feel like I needed to just hear this today. And I'm sure I always think if I need to, somebody else has to. So, I hope that person is listening and this helped you as well. And if this was just so much fun, thank you so much, Abbie. Yeah.
Thank
Any last
you.
words?
No, go out there and you do you. That's what I always tell everybody. You do you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow us, comment, do all the things. It definitely helps our algorithm. And I hope to see you back for our next episode. And that will be out next week. And I always have amazing guests. So come back, listen, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.